Novak Djokovic, finished. Rafael Nadal, forget about him. Casper Ruud?
Who?
There is no doubt that the ATP will be much different in 2028. The Big Three era will be over and other solid players might be on the downfall. So the question is, who will take over in 5 years? I'm predicting that the Frenchman Arthur Fils will round out the top 10 in 5 years. I understand that this pick might be heavily influenced by recency bias since I was really impressed with his play last week in Montpellier, but I saw some encouraging signs for the future. First of all, he has the frame to build on, as he is 6'1" already and there is still time for him to grow even bigger and taller. And for everyone who is wondering why am I mentioning his height as one of the factors that could be crucial for a player to make the top 10 in the future, then take this with no disrespect towards players like Diego Schwartzman or David Ferrer, but you won't see me predicting 5'7" dude to be in the top 10 of the world. But in terms of his game, I love the fact that he is already confident in his abilities at the age of 18. If there is an opportunity for a shot, he takes it. Backhand, forehand, it doesn't matter, you can't see any hesitation in his eyes or his body language. Serve is already pretty good for his age, but of course there are things that he can improve on, such as his play on the return. Sometimes he can be a bit too aggressive with his shots, but those are things that you develop as you mature. So I believe that Fils can be the one to put French tennis back on the map in the future. Number 9 will be Lorenzo Musetti, and I mean, he has been considered as a next big thing in tennis for quite some time now. Some might think that he hasn't been as good as it was predicted after he won in one of the most memorable boys Grand Slam finals in recent history at the Australian Open 2019. He hasn't done anything that memorable on the biggest stages of tennis like Grand Slams and Masters tournaments, but we can't forget that he is only 20. And even though I don't want to group Italians together just because they're Italian, I do foresee a scenario in which Lorenzo might have that Fabio Fognini type of career. What I mean by that is he will be able to play absolutely out of this world at times, but unfortunately it will happen with no real consistency, which will mean that most of the time he won't be a real contender for wins at the big tournaments. However, in my opinion, he will be able to linger around the top 10 spot and ultimately reach the number 9 spot in 5 years time. The next placement might disappoint some, but I don't see anything changing for Felix Auger-Aliassime in the future, so he'll still be the 8th best player in the world even in 2028. As everyone knows, consistency is often rewarded and praised in tennis, but to be fair, I don't think anyone dreams of being consistently 8th in the world. Nevertheless, I just don't see a way in which Felix can break through to that creme de la creme of the sport. He seemingly has the tools to play great tennis, there is no doubt about it, and he has shown that during his exceptional win streak at the end of the last season, for example. But I'll sound like a bit of an old head right now, but I don't think he has that dog in him. I don't think that he has that mentality that is needed to become the best in any sport. We have been predicting Felix's breakthrough in 2020, 2021, 2022, and people are probably predicting him to break through this year, but I fear that he will perpetually stay in the bottom half of the top 10 in the rankings. And someone who doesn't lack that mentality to be the best is Ben Shelton, who will be 7th in the rankings in 2028. Even to the people who followed Ben's career on the Challenger circuit, his result at this year's Australian Open was a shock. I mean, no matter how good you are when you are playing Challengers, it's hard to predict players' immediate success in Grand Slams. But Shelton was able to accomplish that improbable feat, and yes, I am aware that his draw at the Australian Open was very favorable, but it was still an impressive thing that he did, and he accomplished that in his first tournament outside of the US. His performance showed that he is already mentally ready to do big things. I imagine that he will be that player that will annoy some fans and players with his attitude on the court, but primarily he will be known and feared for his huge serve, incredibly powerful ground strokes and pretty respectable agility for a guy of his size. Ben Shelton has the tools to become one of the best players in the world. In my opinion, it is just a matter of time until he gets accustomed to the travel and the life of a top tennis player. And when he's done with that, his climb to the top of the ranking will be inevitable. Despite the fact that I believe in the new generation and generally think that they are better than the first so-called next gen, I still think think that some of the current generation will stay in the top 10. One of those guys will be Sasha Zverev. I don't think I have to do a lot of convincing for you to believe that Zverev can stay on top of the tennis world for the next 5 years. That guy has won 19 titles, which includes an Olympic gold medal, 2 ATP finals wins and numerous Masters trophies. So there is no reason to doubt his abilities, and the only reason why he is not higher is because of the uncertainty about his recovery from a serious injury and the fact that he will be 30 in 2028. The top 5 will start off with someone who is similar to Zverev, in my opinion at least, and it's Sebastian Korda. The most promising thing about Korda is that he has been truly improving from season to season, from match to match, and I can't say that about some of the current top players in the world. The base that he is building on is very solid. His natural ability is not surprising since his family is full of athletes, which means that he is not only competing with other players, he is competing with his family members. For some it could be distracting, but I am pretty sure that Sebastian has his head properly screwed on and he takes such things as motivation rather than as something negative. Korda plays an intelligent brand of tennis that has been and in the future will trouble his opponents, so I have no doubt that he will be in contention for the biggest trophies in tennis. Now let's give out some quick honorable mentions. Jack Draper. We have seen glimpses of greatness from him, but I fear that the physical side will hold him back. Yibing Wu was a great juniors player, now is getting into his groove on the ATP circuit. Wouldn't be surprised if he cracked the top 20 in his career. Now the biggest long shot of them all is Dino Prismic. At 17 years old he is showing pretty good results on the ITF circuit, so he'll be my dark horse pick for the future. Denis Shapovalov will stay in the same place. Brendan Nakashima will be a solid player in the future, but I don't see him getting into the top 10. Taylor Fritz or Francis Tiafoe, one of those guys will stay in the top 20 in the future. Daniil Medvedev is on a decline already, but I expect him to hang on to the top 20. Andrei Rublev will not be able to keep up with his physical playstyle. Jiří Lehečka could become a PCB type player in the future, and Casper Ruud has already peaked in my opinion, so staying in the top 20 is a pretty positive prediction. Just outside the top 3 we will see Jannik Sinner. I envision many Paris Masters and ATP Finals trophies for Jannik in the future, as it looks like he will be an exceptional indoor hardcourt player. And on top of that, he looks like he will be the guy to beat on grass courts in the future, and he has shown that he can be a force to be reckoned with on clay courts as well. That ability to be great on every surface can be really helpful in terms of gaining points, but the obvious setback for him is that he is injury prone, and that is the biggest reason why he didn't get into the top 3. I'm not trying to hate on Tsitsipas, I mean obviously I'm not, as I'm predicting that he will be the 3rd best player in the world in 5 years, but I think that he's in a similar situation as Felix Auger-Aliassime. There are always at least 1 or 2 guys just simply better than him. If we are talking about the older generation, then obviously Rafael and Djokovic are better. From his own generation, Sasha Zverev and Daniil Medvedev have accomplished more, and I see the same happening in 5 years because of 2 guys that I will mention later in the video. Steph has shown that he can be great, but I don't think that he will ever be the greatest at any point in time. And now, moving on to the culmination of the whole list, to the number 1 and the number 2 spots. Carlos Alcaraz will not be the number 1 in 5 years time, because that place will be occupied by Holger Rune. But to be fair, I think it's more of an 1A, 1B situation here, and I can't wait to watch them go at it in the future. In terms of tennis ability, they both are unbelievable. They were born a week apart from each other, so no one will gain advantage in the age department. Holger might be a bit less injury prone, but then Carlos comes back with his mental toughness to make it all even. Listen, I might be getting too excited, but I have no doubt that tennis is in good hands for the future. If you're not afraid, then comment your prediction in the comment section down below. Check out the suggested video for my 2023 year-end predictions. Subscribe to the channel for more unique tennis content, but until next time, take it easy, my friend.